The forest never forgets. Deep in the archives of America's search and rescue database lies a collection of files marked classified, ongoing investigation. Cases so disturbing that seasoned officers refuse to discuss them even decades later. These aren't the missing hikers you've heard about on the evening news or the tragic accidents that make headlines for a few days before disappearing into obscurity. These are the cases that made hardened wilderness veterans hand in their badges. The disappearances so impossible that they defy every protocol, every logical explanation, every desperate theory desperate families cling to in the dark hours of the night. What you're about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about the safety of our national forests. Because these 5 cases reveal a terrifying truth that authorities have spent years trying to bury. Some people don't just get lost in the woods, they get chosen. And once the forest has marked you, there's nowhere to run, no rescue team that can find you, and no amount of preparation that can save you from what waits between the trees. Watching, hunting, collecting those who dare to venture too deep into places where human footsteps were never meant to tread. Case 1. The Sarah Chen Disappearance. Olympic National Forest. Washington. On October 14, 2019. Experienced hiker Sarah Chen embarked on what should have been a routine solo trek through the Hoh River Trail in Olympic National Forest, a path she had completed dozens of times before as a seasoned outdoor photographer documenting Pacific Northwest wildlife. The 28-year-old marine biologist from Seattle was meticulous in her preparations. Her GPS tracker showed she entered the trailhead at exactly 7:23 a.m. Her emergency beacon was fully charged, and she had informed 3 separate people of her planned route and expected return time of 6 p.m. that same evening. What makes Sarah's case so deeply unsettling isn't just that she vanished without a trace, but the impossible circumstances surrounding her disappearance that would haunt investigators for years to come. Her GPS tracker, designed to ping every 15 minutes, showed her making steady progress along the familiar trail until 2:47 p.m. when the signal simply stopped, not due to equipment failure, not due to dead batteries, but as if the device had been deliberately deactivated by someone with technical knowledge. When search teams reached the exact coordinates of her last ping, they found her expensive camera equipment arranged in a perfect circle around a tree, each lens cap removed and facing outward toward the forest. As if she had been documenting something approaching from all directions. Her hiking boots were placed neatly side by side 10 feet away, still tied, with no footprints leading away from them, despite the soft, rain-soaked ground that should have captured every step. Most disturbing of all, her final photographs, recovered from the camera's memory card, showed increasingly frantic shots of the same tree line taken at 2-minute intervals, with each successive image revealing shadowy figures that seemed to be moving closer. Figures that the Forest Service insists are merely light anomalies and branch formations. Despite the fact that several retired park rangers have privately admitted they've seen the exact same figures in photographs from other missing person cases dating back over 30 years. Case 2. The Morrison Family Vanishing Cascade Range, Oregon. The Morrison family, David, 42, his wife Jennifer, 39, and their twin daughters, Emma and Sophie, both 8, were the kind of experienced campers who made wilderness safety their top priority, which is exactly what made their complete disappearance from Oregon's Cascade Range on Labor Day weekend 2017 so impossibly disturbing. David, a former Eagle Scout and wilderness survival instructor, had meticulously planned their annual camping trip to a remote section of the Mount Hood National Forest, a location he had scouted 3 times previously and deemed perfectly safe for his young daughters. The family's campsite was discovered on September 5, 2017, by a passing hiker who immediately knew something was catastrophically wrong. Their tent remained perfectly intact and fully zipped shut from the inside, their campfire still smoldering, with fresh logs that had been added no more than 2 hours earlier, and a pot of soup was still warm on the camp stove, as if the family had simply vanished mid. What sent chills down the spines of seasoned search and rescue veterans was the eerie perfection of the scene. 4 plates were set around the picnic table, with food still on them. 4 sleeping bags remained neatly arranged inside the tent, with Personal belongings untouched, and most unnervingly, 4 sets of footprints led away from the campsite in perfect parallel lines, each step exactly 18 inches apart, continuing for precisely 200 yards before ending abruptly at the edge of a steep ravine where no human could survive the fall. The forensic team's most disturbing discovery came when they analyzed the depth and pressure of the footprints. Each set showed the exact same weight distribution and stride length, as if all 4 family members had been walking in perfect synchronization, controlled by some external force that guided them in their final moments. Despite an exhaustive 3-week search involving over 200 volunteers, helicopter, thermal imaging, and cadaver dogs, no trace of the Morrison family was ever found. But local indigenous elders privately told investigators that the same ravine has been claiming families in groups of 4 for over a century, always during the final days of summer, always leaving behind the same impossible trail of synchronized footsteps leading to nowhere. Case 3, the pattern emerges, the David Kellerman Connection, Appalachian Mountains, Virginia. What began as 3 seemingly unrelated disappearances across different states and decades suddenly converged into something far more sinister, when retired FBI profiler David Kellerman made a discovery that would consume the final years of his career and ultimately cost him his sanity. In March 2021, Kellerman was reviewing cold cases from his 30-year tenure when he noticed an impossible geographical pattern connecting Sarah Chen's disappearance in Washington, the Morrison family's vanishing in Oregon, and a 1987 case he had worked involving a missing geology professor named Dr. Marcus Webb in Virginia's Shenandoah National Park. Using advanced mapping software, Kellerman plotted the exact coordinates of each disappearance and discovered they formed a perfect equilateral triangle spanning the entire continental United States, with each point precisely 2,847 miles from the other to a mathematical impossibility that defied statistical probability by billions to one. More disturbing was Kellerman's discovery that this same triangular pattern had been repeating every 15 years since 1957, with different victims but identical geographic precision, as if some intelligence was selecting locations with supernatural accuracy. When Kellerman dug deeper into the 1987 Webb case, he uncovered suppressed evidence that authorities had deliberately hidden. Webb's final research notes, found scattered around his abandoned campsite, contained detailed calculations proving that these specific forest locations sat atop massive underground electromagnetic anomalies that created what he termed dimensional weak points, areas where the barrier between our reality and something else grew dangerously thin. The professor's last journal entry, written in increasingly erratic handwriting, described hearing voices calling to him from deep within the earth, promising to show him the spaces between spaces where the lost ones wait. When search teams found Webb's campsite, his expensive geological equipment was arranged in the same circular pattern later discovered at Sarah Chen's location. But Webb's case files also contained something that made Kellerman's blood run cold: photographs of shadowy figures identical to those captured on Sarah's camera, taken 34 years earlier with completely different photographic technology. Most terrifying of all, Kellerman realized that, according to the 15-year cycle, the next coordinated disappearance was scheduled to occur in exactly 18 months, and his calculations predicted the location with chilling precision: a remote section of Colorado's Rocky Mountain National Park where, according to Native American legends, the earth itself has been hungry for human souls since before recorded history began. Case 4, the impossible disappearance, the James Mitchell paradox, Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming. Of all the cases that would ultimately drive FBI profiler David Kellerman to early retirement and psychiatric care, none violated the fundamental laws of physics quite like the disappearance of James Mitchell, a 34-year-old park ranger who vanished on June 21, 2003. During the summer solstice, while conducting a routine wildlife survey in Yellowstone's remote thoroughfare region, Mitchell was no ordinary ranger. He was a former Navy SEAL with advanced wilderness survival training, equipped with military-grade communication equipment, and conducting his survey in broad daylight in an area he knew better than his own backyard after 7 years of service. What makes Mitchell's case the most disturbing in the entire collection is that his disappearance was witnessed by 2 separate groups of hikers from different vantage points. Yet their accounts describe something that should be physically impossible. According to the first group, positioned on a ridge 400 yards away with high-powered binoculars, Mitchell was methodically documenting wildlife near a small clearing when he suddenly stopped mid, raised his radio to his mouth, and spoke the words, "They're here," before walking deliberately toward a cluster of ancient pine trees and simply vanishing the moment he stepped into their shadow, not behind them, not around them, but into the shadow itself, as if the darkness had swallowed him whole. The second witness group, located on the opposite side of the clearing, swore under oath that they watched Mitchell approach the same trees. But from their angle, they saw him walk directly into what appeared to be solid tree bark, his body seeming to merge with the wood itself until he was gone. When search teams arrived at the exact location within minutes of the witnesses' frantic radio calls, they found Mitchell's equipment arranged in the now familiar circular pattern, but with one addition that made seasoned investigators physically sick. His radio was still transmitting on the emergency frequency, broadcasting his voice saying "they're here" on an endless loop, despite the device showing no power source and having been confirmed as completely destroyed in a controlled demolition. 3 days later, when the transmission finally stopped, the most horrifying detail emerged during the official investigation when forensic experts discovered that Mitchell's footprints led directly to the cluster of trees. But the soil analysis revealed something impossible. The prints continued for 6 more steps beyond where multiple witnesses saw him disappear, as if he had kept walking for several seconds after becoming invisible to human observation, leading investigators to the terrifying conclusion that Mitchell may have crossed into some parallel space that exists in the exact same location as our reality. Still walking, still trying to complete his survey, forever trapped between dimensions, while something else broadcast his final words as a warning to anyone who might follow.